CNN recently had a focus group conversation with individuals who had voted for Trump. This is an ongoing segment that Alison Camerata does, and I actually really enjoy and appreciate the fact that she does this because I'm curious to hear some of the reasoning that Trump supporters have for voting for him and how they feel about him following a number of controversial stories or scandals that have come up during his administration. Well, this is the first time her panel seems to have legitimate remorse and regret for voting for Trump. And there were a number of really fascinating points made that I want to share with you. First, what did these voters think about the Kavanaugh hearing? Take a look.
If you are affected by the Brett Kavanaugh hearings, how many of you have really been affected by what you've heard? Go ahead.
You know, just the fact that we had to go through this, I think it's wrong.
So you believe the women?
I do.
Of course. The hypocrisy is astounding to me. If they were a lot of these people are the same people who were railing against Clinton and wanted Clinton to be impeached for what he did, and now they are supporting Donald Trump and Brett Kavanaugh for essentially the same thing.
Exactly.
And so now the president calls the women who have come forward a hoax, a Democratic hoax. What do you make of that language?
It's just not surprising.
It's shameful.
Shameful.
He's the hoax, if you ask me. I'm a victim of rape. And to hear this woman sit in front and under oath swear and tell her story about what happened to her, only to have grown men laugh at her, mock her. I just don't know where the bottom is anymore.
Wow, so I am grateful for that segment because we have seen so much from Trump's voters that is the exact opposite of what you just experienced. And it was disheartening and devastating to see that, especially when we showed you a video featuring one Trump supporter at a rally that Emma Vigeland went to. And she had accepted essentially that Dr. Blasey Ford had gone through what she claimed she had gone through. And this female Trump supporter was arguing, well, close your legs and stop making it look like you're asking for it.
I really liked Camerata's segments on CNN too. And it's not because this one happens to agree with us. No, it's because it gives you a real insight into the voters. And most of the time, as Anna pointed out, no, a lot of the Trump voters are sticking with him. That's why this panel was interesting. And so CNN is not remotely rigging these as far as we can tell, because again, it's mixed, but mainly still pro-Trump, which is what the polls indicate. And so about Republican voters. So it seems accurate based, it's not just anecdotal, it seems to reflect what the polling indicates as well, okay? So obviously by definition, just picking a bunch of people are anecdotal, but it at least matches the polling, so they're not giving you a skewed perspective. All right, now this is independent voters, not Republican voters, but they voted for Trump. So that's why you're getting a totally different result, which by the way is also shown in the polling. Now, I don't know that it's shown to this degree in the polling, but and this is what I've been saying all along. Numbers are real, there is no magic, and people are overcompensating for what happened in 2016. Since they thought Hillary Clinton was gonna win, and they thought she had a 98% chance, and she didn't win, now they think, well, all polling must be wrong. That's not true. I told you at the time what was wrong with those polls. Not that polls are wrong overall, but what was wrong with those particular polls? We told you on the Young Turks it was nowhere near 98%, and that Donald Trump had a real chance of winning. And it might have been, we guessed on election day around 35%, and 35% happens, and it did happen. And it happened by a swing of just 39,000 votes in 3 states. So we told you it was possible, and it was. But the polling is real. These are real people. He has lost independents. He has lost them. And when a president is in the 30s, that is a disaster for his party, an absolute debacle. But now everybody's making the mistake in the opposite direction. Well, no, I guess the Republicans are gonna win anyway. No, they're not. No, they're not. If the numbers hold, and it looks like we've got 3 weeks left, they're gonna get killed in these elections because they've lost independence. Look at them, they're like, there's no bottom. I mean, what Sydney Cohan said there is what I say on the show all the time. There is no bottom to that barrel. And that is what the whole country has recognized.
Let's take a look at the next clip. In this clip, they speak specifically about Trump's affinity for dictators around the world.
Anthony, how are you feeling?
Afraid.
Of what?
The dictator in the White House.
And what?
He has no empathy for anything. He will never admit when he makes a mistake.
What were you imagining when you voted for President Trump?
And he said the system is rigged. And he said he was going to be a new sheriff in town. And all he's done is surrounded himself with crooks. How many people have been indicted that were close cahoots with him? And there, in front of the world stage, he looks at Putin and puts his arm around him and says, "This is my buddy."
Yeah, look, Anna, these are my guys. So I didn't want them voting for Donald Trump. I warned people not to vote for Donald Trump. But independent voters sometimes are ones that are low information. That's in the old days. And I used to talk about that all the time. We've been doing the show for a long time now. And then in the new age, a lot of the independent voters are different. They're sick of the corruption of both the Republican and Democratic parties. Okay, so these guys all, in my opinion, and now in their opinion, all voted the wrong way. But now, since they kept an open mind, they're like, well, I didn't vote for this. I voted because the system was rigged. You're right. That's why if Bernie had run and said the system is rigged, he would have, which is what he said in the primaries, he would have won easily. They actually wanted someone who was going to help them, not hurt them. They voted for Trump, these particular folks and independents overall, because they were desperate, because the system has been crushing them their whole lives.
And I want to also just point one thing out. So the majority of the panel does consist of independents. You're right, Cenk. But there is one person on that panel. She's a woman wearing a burgundy jacket. Her name is Stephanie Martin, and she's a lifelong Republican who considers herself part of the religious right. We're going to hear from her in a little bit, but she's also very remorseful for voting for Trump. And honestly, that was the person on this panel that gave me the most hope, because independents, you're right. I mean, they are sick of the system, and it's a little bit of a wild card how they're gonna vote in any given election. But when you start losing female Republican voters who consider themselves part of the religious right, then finally, I mean, the real information, the data, what's really going on with this administration is getting through to some of his supporters. And that's all I ask for. All I ask is that they have the accurate information, and then they make a decision based on that. Because what we keep seeing over and over again is members of his base who only watch Fox News or only read, Breitbart or right-wing publications that are supportive of Trump, and they base their support on that misinformation.
Yeah, and look, the main reason why I like these CNN panels is because it gives you an insight into actual voters. This one in particular, secondarily, because I get to say "told you." I mean, almost everything they're saying is exactly what I've been saying all along. Anna, what did I say? I said he's going to lose Kansas moms. He's going to lose moms in Kansas.
You did, and you know what? You were right about that, because when it comes, if you break down his supporters in terms of demographics, he's losing the most support among white women, mostly white educated women, but white women in general. So that's something to keep in mind. Now, the next clip that we're gonna show you resonated with me the most, mostly because of a statement that was made about his rhetoric. So take a look at that.
The divisiveness in this country right now and the rhetoric coming from the president is a daily exhausting thing. I worry that the dictator, the wannabe dictator in the White House, will make it where we don't even have any more elections.
So that was Sydney Cohan, and I just can't possibly agree with her more.
Remember, these are not Hillary voters. She voted for Trump because people are sick of the system. Whatever you do, do not give them another establishment candidate. Don't give them a reason to vote Republican again. If you give them a populist from the left, they're all gonna go left. Just give them a chance to go left. All right, now let's go to the Republican woman who changed her mind.
I think I'm more feeling embarrassed. As a lifelong Republican, I guess I would consider myself, part of the religious right. And now the values that I see coming from the White House just don't mesh up with what I believe.
Can you pinpoint a moment that you changed from being a President Trump supporter to feeling embarrassed?
Boy.
Which one?
Which card do you want?
Even listening to the inauguration speech, just kind of
very dark, wasn't it?
Dark and antagonistic, and there has not seemed to be any effort to unite the country. It's always us against someone or these people against someone else.
Man, I'm telling you, they're going to get killed. They lost independence, and they lost moms in Kansas. Okay, so to that point, let's go to the polls. Recently, I told you about a poll where the Democrats had gone up from an 8-point advantage in congressional elections, generic elections throughout the country, to 12 points. Then there was another poll that had it at 13 points. New poll out at 14 points. They have a 14-point advantage. That's enormous. Republicans still holding on to a lead among men, anywhere 2 to 5 points. 2 to 5 points. Okay. The lead that Democrats have among women is now up to 30 points. 30 points. I can do math. 5 points does not beat 30 points. Here's another piece of math. There are just as many women as there are men in the country. So, tick, 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 tick. But I got to tell you something. The last thing is the most important thing. If people don't go out and vote on November 6th, none of it matters. And the only thing that's concerning is there is now a little bit of, based on the early voting, because a lot of states allow early voting, and you can see not how people voted, but who's voting, registered Democrats or registered Republicans. The Democratic energy is not quite at the level that they expected. So they're worried about a number of demographic groups that are not showing up at the levels that they were hoping for and believe based on the polling. And I got to keep it real with you. Nobody defends young people more than we do. I think you know more. You grew up on the internet. You have access to all that information. But young people right now not voting at the levels they need to. Okay, so based on the early voting, if young people show up to vote on November 6th, they will rout Trump's party. They will destroy Trump's party. The only question is, are they going to?
Please do, please. Begging you.
Look, man, it's not just our lives. It's everybody's lives that are on the line. And I think I've earned some credibility here. 16 years doing the Young Turks. I never told you a midterm election was the most important midterm election of your life. I'm telling you, this is it. Whether you're a woman, a young person, or just anyone that cares about the country. And to me, I mean, they're all right in all those comments. The one that resonated the most for me was he's a wannabe dictator. He would end our democracy without a second thought. My God, if he retains power, God help us all. But if the Democrats get control of Congress, they can do actual investigations, and they can, more important than anything else, they can block his insane proposals. So remember the 6th of November. Get out there and vote. Like what you see? Click the subscribe button below, and don't forget to ring the bell to never miss another video from the Young Turks.